Tom already said to you, but I want to start by getting getting you to say. I want to start by getting you to tell me your full name,
Real name?
real name, and then Obby, and then the story of Obby, how that came about. The year you were born in, and what city or what town, wherever you were born, if it was at home or hospital
Home.
or whatever. And where you are in the order of the Hallmark kids. What you're the youngest son, or
Yeah.
Let me stop this. I'll explain all this.
Uh,
What number he falls in?
Yeah.
Eight kids?
Yeah. All right, I'm rolling. So start with telling me your name.
okay.
Basic stuff.
My name is Hugh Hallmark, or Hugh Wallace Hallmark, and my nickname is Obby. And I think that come from my youngest sister, Tootie, or Myra Ruth. That what I've been told that when she was learning how to talk, she couldn't say my name, and nobody knows where she picked it up at. It just come from her, and it just happened. And my mother's name is Margaret Ruth Sheridan Hallmark, and my dad's name was Tim Hallmark. I don't think he had a middle name, just Timothy. And he was a preacher for years. And he his daddy's name was George Hallmark, and George, the only thing I ever know him do was fish all his life. And my dad took after him as fishing. He was fished up to a couple of days before he died. And then my son's name's Jason, and he took after my dad on the fishing side, because that's what he does for a living. And my mother, she was mostly a home mother. She took care of the kids. Daddy worked up till they divorced, and she had to go to work. She worked at Caraway Hospital as a nurse's aide, and she took care of all the babies. She took care of a lot of babies in the state of Alabama, quite a few. Where you want me to go from there?
Let's see. You covered pretty much all that, I guess. Where are you in the line of brothers?
Oh, I am the seventh child, and I have 4 brothers older than me and 2 sisters. Then I have 1 sister younger than me, and 2 sisters younger than me.
And how are you different from them? With 8 kids, are you?
Well, I don't know. I guess I've always been pretty mischief and outgoing, even from a kid. I used to hate school. I guess starting in the 1st grade, I used to play hooky, pretty regular. And mother, we only had 1 car in the family, and mother couldn't drive. So daddy, he most times drove the car to work or drove somewhere to catch a ride. And so I would crawl up on the floor because mother was, she couldn't get up under there. And I would hide till the bus run, then I would come out and take my whooping and play all day. Whipping didn't bother me, because I got so many. And then a little later, when I got maybe in the 2nd, 3rd grade, stuff like that, we had to walk about a quarter of a mile around this curve to catch the bus. And there was a branch between the house and the bus stop. So I would fall in line. All the kids walked into school. I'd fall in line with them till I got in that curve of that road. Then I would take to the woods. And I would stay there all day long playing in the branch by myself. And then when I heard the bus come, I would fall back in line and go back home just like I went to school. And we had a truant officer, but for some reason they never would come to our house, and I don't know where it was on account of Daddy or what it was, because Daddy he could have been pretty mean at times, especially if you done something wrong. But anyhow, Daddy didn't like anybody to tell him how to raise his kids or anything like that, and so they wouldn't, you know, it would have been bad business if they'd come, you know, to his house and try to tell him how to raise his kids. But we moved back and forth to Garden City, I don't remember, 2 or 3 times over the years. And when we lived at Garden City, well, I stayed in, like I said, I was always pretty mischief. And one time I shot car windows out with a BB gun, which my brother just older than me, Jerry, he was involved in it, and a boy by the name of Ronald Reed, which he later on he become the state trooper, I believe it is, and he was George Wallace's bodyguard for several years, I understand. But anyhow, when we was down on the river and we been shooting at cars for quite a while, well, Jerry, we all decided to go back home, so Jerry was going to take one, decided he was going to go back to the woods, and then Ronald, we was going to go around the road. And so, lo and behold, by the time we got to the road, here comes Garden City Police. So they loaded me and Ronald up. Jerry got away with it. He didn't get involved in, you know. So they carried us up to the, I don't think they had a jail then. They carried us up to the service station up there. And we had to stay there till Daddy got off work. And then they, you know, carried us home to Daddy. And but actually, I never did even get a whipping out of it. Daddy told me, he said, if I had to pay for that windows, then I'm gonna whoop you, you know. But the guy never did come back, you know. Yeah. And another time when we was living there at Garden City, I'm not for sure, Linda May can tell you, I fell off a bridge, pretty high bridge, and I guess if it wasn't for Wesley, I'd probably drowned it, or, you know, nearly killed me anyhow. And I had a little wall about this high, and I don't remember where I was walking that wall, and I think I was trying to ride a bicycle across it, you know. And so I didn't make it, and I fell down solid rocks. And Wesley happened to see me, and I guess Wesley was probably in the, I don't know, 9th or 10th grade, I guess the 9th grade at this time. And so he run down there and got me, picked me up and carried me home, and it broke my arm, you know, knocked me out. I didn't even, you know, remember half of that. So I guess Wesley probably saved my life at that time, you know.
So your arm was the only thing?
Yeah, yeah. And let's see, going from there, I'll tell you a little story about, I guess I was in the 4th grade, and I wrote this girl a little note. And I'm not going to go into detail exactly what it said, but, you know, I asked her to meet me out of the schoolhouse when we got out of school. And I probably got away with it, but the teacher caught me passing the note to her. And she carried it to the principal, and of course the principal, he put it in an envelope and gave it to Linda. I think she was in the 9th grade at the time, to take home, give it to Daddy. He told her not to open it or nothing, you know. So nobody knew what was in it. And I didn't even know that she'd sent it home, you know, till Daddy got home. Then he called a family meeting, everybody in the family, and he made me read it out loud, to, you know. And so I didn't get a whipping for that either, but he was more embarrassing than anything, you know. But that's the story on that.
Well, so what? I'm getting a signal. Get Jerry to tell me. But, all right, I'm rolling again. So, what did Jerry?
Well, I was probably in the 2nd or 3rd grade. I don't remember. I can't remember the dates and times, but we were still. But Jerry got him a recipe somewhere to make homebrew, and probably from one of the church members, I don't know. But anyhow, he made him some homebrew, and he put it on the church to let it work off. And it was real hot in summertime, and all of a sudden the bottles started busting, blowing tops off of them and everything else, and everybody started smelling that homebrew. Nobody could figure out where it's coming from. It was up on the church. And but me and Jerry used to get into all kind of stuff. We had a neighbor, I don't remember what his name was, lived behind us up there when we lived in the Parsons at Garden City Church of God. And he had a big field of watermelons out there, and we'd always steal in watermelons, you know. And we would, the guy would always chase us with shotguns, or, you know, act like he was chasing us, you know. And we'd crawl up in some hay shocks, you know, where they cut the corn, and we'd crawl up in that corn, and so he couldn't see us. But I think he'd walk around us, you know, knew we was in there, but, you know, just making like it gonna shoot us, you know. And then another time, well, I don't know how it started. We was out there in this sagebrush field, big sagebrush field, and somehow or another, I think Jerry started the fire. I'm gonna blame it on him. Anyhow, started a big fire, and it caught the whole woods on fire, everything. They had to call the fire department down there, put it out and everything. And one of the craziest things we used to do, we was so small that we would get Daddy's shotgun. He had an old shotgun. It was a Belgium twist, double barrel rabbit ear shotgun. And we couldn't even carry it hardly. We'd have to take it apart in 3 pieces, and we'd stick it down our pants and under coats and everything else, slip it out of the house. And it'd take both of us to shoot it. And we would go out there in the woods, and we would put it against a tree and pull the trigger, you know, let it shoot it like that, you know, because we couldn't. If we'd have tried to shoot it with against the shoulder, it knocked us down, you know. It's a wonder we hadn't got killed, you know, 1,000 times, you know, but we used to do stuff like that all the time. But yeah, it's amazing, I tell you. Well, and top that off, old Dale Pettit, you know who he is. He owns Top Hat Barbecue up here. And he used to live right up on top of the hill at Garden City. And Dale used to step in there and get his daddy's shotgun shells, and we'd go out there and build a fire in the woods and throw them shotgun shells in there, and we'd stand behind a tree and watch them blow up, you know. And it's a wonder we hadn't got our head blowed off, you know. But we was in, you know, 1st, 2nd grade, you know. So we used to do some crazy stuff.
These stories you're telling me are when you were in elementary school.
Most of them was, you know.
And so you must have had your teenage years must have really been.
Well, I don't know. I guess I was probably, I'm going to say somewhere around 10, 11, or 12. Jerry was 18 months older than me, and Larry was 18 months older than Jerry. So Larry was 3 years older than me. And he was the oldest one of us, and we used to have to pick produce and go to the farmer's market. This is when we moved back to Massillon. And we had an old Dodge truck, and thing was always quitting on us. And I think maybe Larry might have been 14 years old. Didn't have a license. And Daddy would send us to the farmer's market. We would have a whole load of watermelons, cantaloupes, corn, you know, peas, butter beans, what have you, you know, turnip greens. And we would go down to Finley Avenue to the farmer's market. We'd stay down there 2 or 3 days at a time. And, but, I mean, you know, bad to say now, but we're back in the races, you know, when Birmingham had a lot of stuff going on. Well, we was bad. Asked black people, did they want a watermelon or a cantaloupe when we was going down through there. So you know what we done? We give them one. We just throw it, you know, and knock them down with it, you know. And and if I guess if the old truck had quit, we'd probably got killed, all of us, you know. We got a good butt whooping anyhow, which we would have deserved. But like I say, we'd go to the farmer's market, and like I say, Larry was probably the oldest one, about 14. Might have been 15, I don't know. I know he didn't have license time, but you know, you could drive all the way to Birmingham and not see a car on the road.
Now, when you said you stayed you'd stay overnight?
Yeah,
You'd
we'd
camp
stay.
out or something?
Well, no, the farmers markets had a big old bunch of sheds down through there, and we'd get on one of them sheds, you know, and we'd sleep in the back of the truck, on, you know, on the produce or on the seat of the truck, or lay out there on that big cement block, you know, where we had all the produce. And if somebody wanted something, if we'd sleep, they'd wake us up, you know.
So that made more sense than going back to the
Back
house.
and forth, yeah. We'd have to stay till it was gone, you know, or it dried up so bad, then we'd take it back and feed it to the hogs, you know.
Wow. What an interesting responsibility for 3 young teenagers
Yeah,
to be just
but-
sent to town.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, those days were different.
Yeah,
I'd
sure.
rather do that.
Well, I know.
Send my son into downtown Baltimore, you know.
Well, when we was young, like mother, she would always tell us, this, you know, mother never knew where we was at from daylight to dark. Cause I mean that's the way we lived back then. You know, there wasn't many houses around, and all the kids would go to the Blue Hole swimming all day, which is about 3/4 of a mile from the house. And mother'd always tell us, y'all kids better not go to that Blue Hole till you learn how to swim. And I don't know how we're supposed to learn how to swim without going. Okay, anyhow, we'd been doing it ever since we could walk anyhow, you know. And we would, every day, just about we'd go over at that Blue Hole. And we'd either be in the woods somewhere, camping out. We built camps, you know, in the woods, built little sheds on the creeks and stuff. And we'd go down there and stay 2 or 3 days at a time, you know. And a lot of times, like I say, mother never would know where we was at all day long. But, I mean, I don't guess she worried about it. She probably did, but just didn't let on, you know.
Right.
And I was always, like I said, the baby boy, so anytime they'd do anything wrong, I'd tell on them and they'd get in trouble. Daddy would give them a whooping. He wouldn't whoop me. He'd whoop them for letting me do it, you know. Like smoke or something other, we'd slip out in the smokehouse. Linda probably was involved in it too. You remember the smokehouse? We'd go out there and smoke or something other than smokehouse, and we'd smoke rabbit tobacco and corn silks, cross vines, you know, you name it.
Just whatever
And
burned.
then Daddy would whoop them for letting me to do it. But and if something happened and nobody owned up to it around there, Daddy'd line us all up. At the time, there's 8 of us, so he'd line us all up, and he'd whoop you till somebody owned up to it. So somebody better owned up. I remember one time he did that. Somebody melted a comb on a wood stove. We had wood heaters back then, coal stoves, and somebody took a comb and stuck it to melted it on the stove, you know. And Lord have mercy, we got a whooping for that. I don't ever know who done that. I don't know where everybody ever owned up to it or not, but he was. So anyway, I could do about anything and get away with it when Daddy wasn't there with Mother, because she wouldn't tell Daddy. Like I said, she'd whoop me, and I was over that, you know. But she wouldn't tell Daddy because she knew Daddy would beat the fire out of us when he got home, you know. So she wouldn't tell on us to him, you know. He'd have to find out some other way or be there when something happened, you know.
Well, when he left, how old were you when he left?
I'm thinking around 12 or 13, maybe 14.
And how did that hit you at that age?
Well, really, I don't really know. All I remember what happened is because Mother and Daddy never went on vacation. And Barney and Larry was in Texas. So I guess Larry was 17, so I might have been about 14.
Oh, Barney and Larry.
Barney and Larry was in Texas.
Okay.
And they was out there working at this rubber plant. And I think that's what they did. They made, you know, rubbers and stuff. So anyhow, rubber gloves, everything, you know, they make. But anyhow, they was working out there. And Mother and Daddy took,
Where in Texas?
I don't know, I don't remember that now.
Okay, that's all right.
And Mother and Daddy took a vacation, and they went out there. And they was having trouble then. Daddy was seeing this other woman, you know. I don't remember how he found it. Well, one of the neighbors called Mother, I think, told us. And I don't think Mother really believed it for a long time, you know. But I think she finally caught up with him somehow or another. But anyhow, when they got back, well, Mother told us, that her and Dad was separating, and he was seeing another woman, and so he left. And really and truly, I don't know, I was at that age, I had other things on my mind and didn't really think a whole lot about it, I guess, at the time, But I know Mother never did get over it, and I know, older sister, she never did get over it, It was because he preached on it so hard, and then he started doing the things that he preached on, he got, over the years he started, drinking pretty heavy again, making wine, and I guess he made a little shine and all this stuff, later on, in life, and but he go ahead.
He started making wine.
Yeah.
Later on?
And he could make wine out of anything. I don't care what it was. He told me that if it would ferment, he could make wine. And he made some tomato wine that would knock your socks off. It was the strongest wine, but it was crystal clear. You would think it wouldn't be, but it was crystal clear when he made it,
Mom told me about him made syrup. He was always making, he seemed like very industrious, I guess.
Yeah, he was. Daddy was real smart. He could do anything, and I guess that's where me and Larry and Jerry and, Wesley, all of us got our stuff, because all of us have been pretty well able to do what you call a jack of all trades. Okay, back when we lived at Massillon, like I say, when we was, doing all that farming and everything, Daddy used to make a lot of sorghum syrup in the fall. And he had borrowed this man's syrup mill, syrup pan and everything. And he was a black guy. He lived about 3 or 4 miles from him. And we never, he's the only black that we was ever around. And I mean, we didn't do it because it was racist, but his name was Nigger James. That's what we called him. Everybody called him out around there, I mean, he wasn't offended by it. And he was an older gentleman. And he would come over there and watch Daddy make syrup, and he would get his rent on his syrup mill, and which was a gallon of syrup. Daddy gave him every year, that's all he wanted, And he told Daddy to keep it meal till he asked him for it back, that, he didn't need it, and if he ever needed it, he would ask him for it back. But later on in life, this guy come up missing. He lived over there between the house and Palmerdale on Posey Mountain over there at Peach Orchard over there. And he lived down below it. And he come up missing, and he's never been found to this day. Nobody knows, has no clue what happened to him or nothing. He went to feed the cow one morning, and his last he's ever seen. And then several years later, his wife come up missing. But they found her about 2 miles in a little pond, and she was drowned. And I think that she was out looking for him, still looking for him, But anyhow, Daddy used to make syrup, every fall. And I was the youngest boy, so I don't know, I was, 7, 8 years old at the time. And my job was to drive the tractor around the mill. We used the tractor to pull the mill with instead of a muse, because it was so hard on the muse, to be out there all day. So I'd ride around and around and around that syrup mill all day, pulling the mill with the tractor. And it was a rough job, I can tell you. It was. And I guess Linda probably remembers this. We had a cousin named Sarah Jane, and it was Granddaddy Hallmark's brother's daughter. And they was down there visiting one day, and when you making syrup, you have to what they call skim it. It's a foam and stuff. It's trash and stuff that gets on. Just when the syrup cooks, it's the waste off of it. You dip it out and you put it in a skim hole over here, and it's real hot because that stuff just boiling. And Sarah Jane stepped in that hole when I don't know, she was just a little girl, I don't remember how old she was. But man, it just, from her ankle down, it just took everything off her foot. It was, I don't remember that much about it. I remember that happening, and she was in misery for a long time after that, But yeah, we raised chickens, and we had a chicken house 350 foot long. We raised about 22,000 chickens. And I was probably up in the probably 7th, 8th, and 9th grade at the time. And I had my job every morning to go raise the curtains in the chicken house and check all the feed and waters, make sure that, everything was okay, and pick up the dead chickens. Went up there one morning, and I looked over in the corner, and this corner was full of dead chickens, and that corner was full of dead chickens, and walked through the chicken house, and there was just dead chickens everywhere. Couldn't figure out what it was. I got to looking, looked up in the rafter, and there was an old owl sitting up in there. He was about this high. And anything that moved, quick moving in that chicken house, the chickens was run to the corner, And what they did, that owl was flying back and forth in that chicken house, and all the chickens run over in the corner and smothered them to death, And these chickens averaged about 3 pounds a piece. They're just ready, like about a week, being ready to take off, to process. So that truck that I was telling you about, Larry, we had for several years. Well, we had big sideboards on it, and I picked up over 1,200 chickens that day and throwed them in that truck. And a lot of them we give away. Chickens were still good, and we give them to, I ain't gonna call no restaurants names, but a bunch of restaurants between all the way from the house to Garden City. People come down there and get them, and cleaned them and served them in their restaurants, And but there were still thousands of them that we, had to, throw away because, couldn't keep them,
Right.
We cleaned as many as we could,
Yeah. Well,
But
so the chicken were purely for selling as chicken.
broiler,
No eggs.
no broiler
Okay.
chickens, just strictly for,
I got you. Well, and then so you went. What you graduated high school?
No, I didn't graduate. I went to the 10th grade, and I was asked to go home and not come back.
Well, you still spent most of the day fishing anyway.
Yeah. But what's funny, Larry, when Larry was in the 9th grade, Larry was a hell of a basketball player. I mean, at Garden City, they used to try to talk everywhere in the world, talk Daddy into letting him play ball, and Daddy wouldn't let him, because of church. But anyhow, after Daddy left home, well, Larry, or when when he got in the 9th grade, we was living back at Massillon. Well, Daddy started letting him play then. And I used to call him Hook. Because if he ever got past the middle of the court, he would shoot a hook shot, and just about he gonna hit it. And I believe Bradford was playing Mortimer Jordan, and I guess they was playing Mortimer Jordan's B team, and Bradford beat the fire out of Jordan, and I think they beat them something like 62 to just 10 or something like that. I don't remember what score, but anyhow, Larry scored something like 52 points in that. So the next year when Larry went to Jordan, I would have been in the 8th grade, Jerry the 9th, Larry was 10th. But anyhow, when Larry went to Jordan, the coach over there asked Larry said, "You are going to play basketball for us, aren't you?" Larry said, "No." He said, "I wouldn't play for a team sorry as y'all got." And so the Hallmark name was, mud after that. But anyhow, I finally made it. Oh, before we went over, what I was going to tell you, I was in the 7th grade, and I made 32 F's that year, and I flunked. And Larry made something like 36 F's, and he passed. And so that didn't sit too good with me, but there wasn't nothing I could do about it, But I don't know. But they liked Larry, they didn't like me. But I would. I mean, I hated school with a passion, and I would. If I did go to school, there'd be a lot of days I'd walk from Bradford home, and it was 5 miles. And I just, I'd look outside, and I had too many things out there in the woods I needed to do, besides sitting in the classroom. And two, a lot of it was Daddy's fault because he messed up one day. Mother's fussing at him about my grades, And so I overheard Daddy tell him, well, he was going to be just like him because he didn't go to school and he hated school too. So I knew I had it made then. So, but anyhow, I still got the report card somewhere. I don't know where they at. When I was in junior high school. But I did. I hated school with a passion.
Well, that obviously hadn't negatively impacted your life, or do you feel like it has?
No, I don't think it did, because I've made, I've always made a good living for, family and everybody, and I've always had a good job. Well, I went in the military, stayed in the military 3 years, and
Tell me more about that. What service?
I went in the Army, and well, it's funny, when I was in there, I was in the artillery, and they wanted to send me to a nuclear warhead school, so I had to get a background investigation. I had to get a secret clearance. So they interviewed, I'm talking about from my first grade teachers all the way through school, all my neighbors and everybody, and they'd come into the neighborhood and asking questions about me. And, well, everybody, I don't know, somehow I got in it anyhow, but everybody was wondering what kind of trouble I was in, because they wouldn't tell them, what they was doing, because it's all secret, And what it was, I was going to be a nuclear warhead assembler, and so I was in the artillery, and that's mostly what I did, so. I did assemble nuclear warheads, but that was during Vietnam. And I was like everybody else, I thought it was, when I was 17, 18 years old, I thought I was supposed to go to Vietnam like everybody else. But I volunteered, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and it got denied every time. I was in the 7th Army in Germany, and they kept denying it, but they wouldn't allow us in Vietnam because of our MOS, and that was our job title, is what we did, because they wouldn't use nuclear weapons over there, and so they wouldn't let us in the country,
There was
no need for us over there.
Right.
So I spent my time in Germany, in a little town called Wertheim, and I think Tootie, she went over and visited that little town, when she was in Germany for several years, and she went down to the little town, looked it up, where it's something like about 50 miles from south of Frankfurt.
Okay. How long were you there?
I was there a little over 2 years.
Now, during that time, were you just working all the time, or were you able to travel around at all?
I've traveled. We put in 8-hour days, and most of the time weekends we was off over there, So, I got to see a lot of Germany. Went to a lot of old castles that, blowed up during the war. Went down to Austria once, and just traveled all over the country, go somewhere. Back then I was buying cigarettes for 9 cents a pack, and we could 3 of us get together and we could give taxi driver 3 cartons of cigarettes, which would cost us, $2.70. Take us all the way to Austria back. Because they wanted them American cigarettes, and they was a black market for them, and they was selling them. See, but we could buy them to, PX for 90 cents a carton.
Oh, a carton.
90 cents a carton, 9 cents a pack.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now this is, we got to remember this is back in 65, 66, 67.
And you were a teenager. You were 18 or 19.
Well, I was 17. My birthday was in May the 25th. I was born in 1947, and I was 17. It was July after I turned 17, and mother had to sign for me to go in the army, which probably saved my life by going in, because I was running the wrong crowd at the time. Just got put in jail, we had a big free-for-all down there. I mean, I really didn't do a whole lot of fighting. I was more cussing this old woman out. She had us put in jail. But anyhow, the boy that I was running around with while I was in Germany, he got shot and killed in a fight that I run with all the time. And more than likely I probably would have been with him,
Or who knows what else you would have been doing.
And no telling. And
do you think that your time in the service or your time in living in Germany, or you living in Europe, and your perspective, changed or
well,
impacted?
I matured a lot. Yes, I mean it was I matured a whole lot while I was in the military, and it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. I growed up considerably, and back then, you was taught to respect, your officers and the elders and everything else, and spears, and which they don't do that these days. It's completely different, these days than it was back then.
You were running one?
Well, I worked at a service station at night back when I was in 10th grade. 16 years old. Down there on 79, it was Sparky Oil Company at the time. And this other boy that his daddy had a lawyer. When we got in a fight and got in trouble, well, I got put in jail for abusive language. And but anyhow, this boy's daddy was a big moonshiner. And when I worked at this service station, like I was 16 years old, this boy wanted me to haul some moonshine for him to Georgia. And I was going to do it. Had plans on doing it. Well, I mean, they had a pretty well foolproof operation, what they thought. And they'd put 55-gallon drums in those little 50-mile Chevrolet truck with oil pumps in the back of it. And they'd fill them barrels full of moonshine and put sawdust in there over them, and put the lid back on it with an oil pump in it. It looked like an oil drum. Then they'd pour oil all over the, drums and everything in the back of the truck. Made it look, And I think they was gonna pay me $100 to haul it to Georgia. And so I told them I would. And for some reason, I was late getting there. And when I topped the hill, seen their house back over in the woods, it was lit up with blue lights. So I turned around and left. And anyhow, this old guy, he had a lawyer hired, and he's the one that he went to court for us and got kicked out of court, when we went to court. This lawyer told the judge, he says, Your Honor, said this is not a bunch of hoodlums here. These boys just don't take shit off nobody. So anyhow, the judge threw it out.
Oh, wow.
And anyhow, when they got caught, the daddy and the mama, 2 brothers and sisters, which all of them's dead, but one brother and one sister, they still alive. But Jim, when they went to court, the judge told Jim that if he would join the Army, that he wouldn't give him no prison time. And so Jim told him, he said, hell, give me the prison time. I ain't going to Army. You know? So he ended up serving a year in prison. And I don't know why he got time and none of the rest of them did. None of the rest of them got any time out of it. But yeah, I come close. And that's when they wasn't long after that's when I went to work for Daddy. Worked for him I stayed over there for nearly a year. That's when I was 17, and then that's when I joined the Army. Running a service station over there at Sterrett. He'd bought that place over at Sterrett, and he was running that had that service station, and so I run it for him.
Now, I'm trying to remember when we would go. Was that right in front of where he lived?
Yeah, the service station is right in front of his house. The old station's still there. It was last time I was over that way. I ain't been over that way in a long time. Yeah. And then he finally shut it down, and he made him a smokehouse out of it. He'd smoke meat down there, and he had a bunch of coolers in there, and that's when he retired, he shut it down, and he fished every day. And he would sell his fish, he'd clean his fish and sell it, he had customers all over Birmingham, but they always talk about how much mercury them fish out of Coosa River had in them. We wasn't fit to eat and everything. Well, I ain't no telling how many lawyers and doctors that he had that bought fish from him, Then, they would actually order certain size fish. They'd want, if they wanted to like have a cookout and grill it, they'd want a 15 or 20 pound fish and cut it up in steaks, Yeah, right. And he was selling it to them, so, if it'd been that bad, they wouldn't have been eating it, So. Yeah. And anyhow, when Jason was 12, I sent him over there to stay with Daddy for a week or so, and Daddy'd carry him fishing every day. And when they would get in, they would clean the fish, and Daddy would sell it, and give Jason half the money at it. And Jason told him he said, Grandpa said, this is what I'm going to do for a living when I get big, is fish, and he stuck to it. And Jason was like me. He hated school. He made bad grades. And he'll tell you right now, the only way he got through school was fishing. He said, well, he moved, they moved to Florida when he was a teenager. And I had a friend that had a party, her sister had a party boat down there. And I got them to give him a job as a deckhand. That's how he got started, as a deckhand on that boat. And so the captain took a liking to him real well. And when he left that boat, he went to a private boat. And the captain talked Jason into going with him, told him, he said they'd teach him everything he knew to get his, captain's license. And so he went with the guy, and the guy taught him, everything he needed to know. And he had to have so many thousand hours on the boat before he could, take the test to get his captain license. And so we had to send him to school down in Louisiana. But that's how he got his start, actually, fishing with Dad when he was, when he was young.
And now he's the captain of his own.
Well, yeah, he owns his own boat, and he's been the captain, I don't know, for several years now. He was actually the youngest captain in Florida to get his captain license, And he's operating a private boat now for a guy out of Georgia that owns a big chemical company over there. And they fish a lot of tournaments and stuff, and he's one of the top captains in Florida now. He's in the headlines all the time down there now, Yeah, he's doing great, doing real good.
Yeah. I keep up with him on Facebook.
Yeah.
See some of the posts that his buddies put on there when he has big catches. back from the service.
Okay.
You came back. You finished your service in Germany.
Germany, yeah.
And so when you were done in Germany, you came home.
Yeah, I actually started to stay in. Uh, I was an E5, Sergeant E5 when I got out, which is pretty good for 3 years, and they wanted me to re-enlist, and I was going to if they would give me a promotion, but I didn't have enough time in to get to staff sergeant stripes, so they had to send it off to get approval, and I told them the only way that I would stay is if I got it back, approval back before it was time for me to go, and it didn't come back. And I had a buddy that he was in special weapons too, and he was going to Memphis to the FBI school in Memphis, and he wanted me to go with him, and I started to go up there with him. Thought a lot about it, but then I said, well, I'm just ready to go home. And because we had our, secret clearances and everything, because, they have to have clearances and all that, and it costs a lot of money to do a background investigation on somebody, Back then it cost a lot, and that was back in the 60s, And we was offered to, go to school, but I didn't go, and he did. And he stayed in it several years, but he retired as county sheriff in Memphis now. And
so what did you do?
I came back home and went to work with Larry down at Richard Tank.
Okay.
And so I stayed there nearly 3 years. And then we was racing over at Sayre one night. And Shelley, his aunt, was seeing this guy sort of on the side that worked at National. I mean, it was Hutchison, and we was races over county line one night, and he was over there with her, and so I come up and talked to him after during the race, and he wanted to know who done my mechanic work, welding and all that stuff, and I said, I do, and he said, you want a job? And I said, well, I got one, but if it pays more. I think I was making $2.90 an hour at the time, and he said, I can get you a job starting you out at $3.09, and I said, well, who I need to see? So he told me, he said, come down there. This is on Saturday, and he said, come down there Monday morning, see a guy named Marvin Walker. He said, I work nights, but he said, I work in maintenance. And he says, see a guy named Marvin Walker, he's the head of the department, and talk to him. And so at the time, I was a pretty good welder. I wasn't certified in that, but I could weld about anything I wanted to weld. And so I guess that's how I got the job, really. It's because when I went over there, they was building a big dock board where you drive forklifts from the dock onto trucks and stuff. They'd building one out there on the dock. And I looked at the weld and the burning on it, and Marvin was taking me around showing me the plant, We walked by. And he says, do you think you can build one of them right there? And I said, well, I can do it better than that shit there. So I guess I sold him on, and so anyhow, they hired me, and it was Hutchison at the time. Then they sold out to International Silver, and International Silver sold it to Triangle Industries. Triangle Industries sold it to, I think, National Can. National Can sold it to, National Can bought American Can. They changed it to American National Can. Now American National sold it to, I think, to Ball Industry now. And I stayed there 39 years. And the day I turned 62, if I had 39 years, I walked out and I ain't looked back. But I mean, I liked it. I had, you know, made good money while I was there, and I had a lot of job security. I worked there 39 years and didn't get laid off a day, you know, the whole time I was there.
Wow.
And
What were you? What did
I
you?
was a millwright machinist.
Okay. Were you in charge of people too?
No,
Never had a
I'd
supervisor?
offered, I was offered, but I just something that men management didn't see eye to eye on stuff. You know, I was pretty hard headed. That I knew my job and knew, you know, what to do and how to do it, and I didn't want somebody telling me how to do it. You know,
All right. Now, um, when when did you meet Shelley? Where did Shelley come into this whole?
I had just got out of the army, and this was in '67,
Okay.
and Jerry had that service station down there at Hopewell Pier Oil. And that's where he had one of his little steels set up at in the back of it. And anyhow, I was out there working on the car, and I seen this girl walk by, and so I stuck my head out in the car. You know, in a few minutes I got out and asked Jerry. I said, "Whose wife is that?" And he said, "She ain't married." I said, "She ain't 15." And I said, "Okay." So I just, you know, started talking to her, and next thing I knew, you know, we had a date, you know, and actually, we got married when she was 16, and I was 21, and
And she was Shelley
Rogers.
Rogers.
Hmm.
Right. And that was around 67.
Uh,
68.
yeah, 60, yeah, 67, 68. We got married in 69, I think it was.
Okay. And then Jason.
Jason was born in 75.
And,
Then Cherie, and then Heather.
yeah.
You know.
Okay. And then let me stop for a second. My battery's about to die. I think. Well, we're going to
Cammy?
This place,
I wasn't
County
sure
County.
about- yeah. How did you meet Cammy?
Uh, I was coaching ball, and me and Shelley we was having a good bit of problems at the time. You know, we was, I say, running with the wrong crowd, but we was part of the wrong crowd ourselves. You know, it's like people telling you their kids running with the wrong crowd, but they don't want to face up that they are the part of the wrong crowd. That's what the other people think. You know. So anyhow, we was doing a lot of things we shouldn't be doing at the time, you know, and we was partying a lot every weekend, you know. And so, like I said, I was coaching ball at the time, softball, yeah. And we was in a tournament in Alabaster, and we was playing this team, and Cammy was playing third base for this other team, and so, you know, I was always looking for good ball players and stuff, you know, because we had a top-notch team. We won 100 and something like 110 out of 130 ball games that year, you know. And I mean, we traveled every weekend all over the state, you know, played tournaments and everything. And so, anyhow, after the game, you know, I asked her was she interested in playing ball for us. You know, I was needing. Well, I didn't have about 11 ball players, and it's hard to play tournament ball with 11 ball players, you know. And so I asked her was she interested in playing for me, and she says yeah. So we was having a party that night after the ball game. You know, when we got back home, they invited her up. You know, and she started playing ball for me, and next thing I know, you know, we started seeing each other. You know, and anyhow, we moved in together. We moved into a little old trailer over there beside Mother's. You know, at the time, I had a little camper trailer. We stayed in it for a while. Then we moved in Miss Gilly's old house over there on 79. Larry owned it. You know, it was an old, real old house. Didn't even have no hot water heater or no heat or nothing in there. We like to froze to death that winter. But
This is Mary Helen's mother's house.
grandmother's house. Grandmother,
Yeah.
grandmother and granddaddy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Near
her,
Haycoods, right?
right there at Haygoods is that little old house right there beside Mary Helen's mother's house.
Okay.
And her name was T. Lodi, and his name was Telford. Her grandmother, Mary Helen's grandmother, and he had owned that house.
Really? T. Lodi?
And Telford. But I tell you, short story. It really don't pertain to me, but she had T. Lodi. She was real religious, and she called a family meeting. You know, everybody thought she was crazy. You know, but anyhow, she called Telford her tail all the time. Because short for Telford, you know, she called him her tail. But anyhow, she called a family meeting and told them that she wanted everybody to be careful because she had a vision that she was going to have 3 grandsons to die with their shoes on in a short period of time. And lo and behold, it wasn't no time that William, you know, Jerry's brother-in-law, got killed in a car wreck. He was 16, 17, down there at Bradford. And then it wasn't no time later that Bessie Melvin's boy got killed in a truck wreck. And I think that was right down here on pretty close to Warrior down here somewhere. And then it wasn't long after that. I remember when this happened because Shelley was in the hospital and Jerry and Mary Helen was down there. And Mary Helen got the call that the Gilly boy, what was his name? Glenn, got killed on a motorcycle in front of the road and hit a tree. And anyhow, and it come true, you know. They thought she was crazy, you know, and all of them, you know, she said with her shoes on, and they all died with their shoes on. But anyhow, we lived in that old house of hers, for about a year. And then we moved up to Blount County to this boy I used to work with. They had a big house. Before we had all our parties at, she had a big basement fully furnished, so they let us move in it. And then this was in '82, and we got married up in Smoky Mountains under waterfalls. And then we moved to Morris, Kimberly, over at Kimberly for a while. Then we moved over at Morris. And while we was at Morris, then Mother gave me an acre of land over there beside her. And that's when we built that house over there. And we built that in '86, I believe it was. And we lived there till I believe it was, what did I say? 9 years. And I believe it's been 9 years now since we built this house. And Cammie had started collecting a lot of antiques, and she kept wanting me to build that house bigger over her, and I wouldn't do it. I told her, I said, there's no way, no, well, I'm gonna add on in Jefferson County. I said, I want out of Jefferson County. So Jerry was in cahoots with the guy that owned all this property over here, and they was developing it. And I found out another boy was looking at this piece of property I worked with, and he was telling me about it. And I said, well, you gonna buy it? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, I'm gonna go look at it. So I come over here and looked at it, walked it, me and Cammie, and there wasn't even a road in here. There wasn't a house one in there, the road nowhere. They were just started cutting it in here. And so I went back and asked old Cooter, I said, Cooter, you gonna buy that property? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, I'm gonna buy it. And he said, okay. So I went and told Jerry, tell that boy what I'd give him for it, you know. And so Well, Jerry said, well, he'll take it. Says, just, you know, I'll tell him, you know, but he'll take it. And I said, if he'll cut me a road in. You know, they was cutting the main road in, yeah, but they wasn't no driver, nothing up through here. So Jerry told me, he said, yeah, if you'll buy the pipe to put in down here, so it's going to take some big pipe. And he said, if you'll buy the pipe, I'll help them cut the road in for you. And so they cut me a road in here. And but like I said, Cammie was collecting a lot of antiques, and she wanted something bigger, you know. So I didn't want to build in Jefferson County. I wanted out of Jefferson County. And I just hated the county. You can't do nothing without them got their nose stuck up your butt, you know, everything you do, you know. Everything, taxes, everything, you know.
When you saw this property and decided to buy it, did you envision this kind of business? Or
No.
were you just thinking a place to live?
No, just a place to live. Well, see, we was taking care of Cammie's mother at the time.
Right.
And so I told her, I said, well, we'll just build her a cabin on the end of our house because Cammie's always wanted to do a bed and breakfast. And I says, if something happens to your mother, we will, you know, you can do a bed and breakfast in the cabin. So that's the reason we built it the way we did, with a big utility room separating the two houses. And so her mother didn't like it over here. She wanted to be in Montgomery with her she had two young grandkids down there, Tim's, and she wanted to be close to them. So got her apartment down there close to Tim, and she's been down there ever since. And so we started doing bed and breakfasts. And so it wasn't long after we done bed and breakfast, this couple come out here and got engaged. And they come around the next morning and said they got engaged and wanted to know if they could come back and get married up here. And we said, well, you know, ain't never thought nothing about it. We ain't got no place to get married except patio out here. We got the patio's all we got. We ain't got a place, you know. And they said that'd be fine. So they ended up getting married, you know, and we had, I don't know, ended up having something like 12 weddings, you know, just by word of mouth, you know. And so I told Cammie, I said, well, I'm going to go down here at the lake and build a, you know, pavilion, a gazebo down there, so they'll have somewhere to get married. So I went down there and built the gazebo. Had me a bunch of cedar benches built and everything, you know, put down there at the lake. Started doing weddings, and we was doing the receptions up here on the patio. So we did that for over a year out here just on the patio here, you know. And it worked good, you know. I mean, everybody liked it, didn't have no complaints. And I told her, I said, well, if we're going to keep doing it, you know, I'm going to go down here and build a pole barn, place for them to get out. I didn't even have no bathrooms at the time. And I says, I'm going to build a pole barn so they get in out of the rain in case it rains. Because, you know, I said, we hadn't got caught in the rain, but I said, we got to have a place. So I had to go out here and build some bathrooms, you know, and then I built a pole barn. And then when I got the pole barn built, I said, well, I want a kitchen on it. So I went down there and built a kitchen on it. And then I built a deck and, you know, just went from there. And she went and bought this gas pump out in Arkansas. It was a pile of rust, you know. She bought it out there. It was in the woods. She come hauling that thing back from Arkansas. And so she redone it. And then she wanted me to build her a storefront somewhere to set it on, you know, just for looks, you know. And I told her, I said, no, I said, I'll build you some kind of room, you know, a little store, but I said, I ain't gonna build just the front, you know, because it cost me much to do that, to build a room. So I went down there and built her a little store out there. And so she was still coaching ball at the time, and she had, you know, T-shirts, redneck wine glasses, you know, candles, all kind of stuff she had made, you know, with our logos and all that on it, you know. But she never was here on Saturday to keep the store open, and I couldn't do it, you know. I wasn't going to do it, you know, because I had more other stuff to do besides that. So anyhow, she sold a good bit of stuff, you know, off and on, you know, when she could. But, you know, then finally she said, well, she ain't got time to fool with it. So she said, I'm just going to clean it out and make a bridal room out of it. So she made the bride's dressing room out of it and got it set up real nice out there for them. They all like it real well, you know. And it's something we didn't plan. It just fell in our lap. And, you know, I couldn't tell you, you know, how, you know, business is so great, you know, that we have weddings from, like this year, we had them from March to December. And I've had 2 weekends off. And that's because we took them off, you know.
Well, isn't that going to be hard to give up?
No.
Not really?
Uh-uh.
It's the money and the headache kind of...
Yeah. With my retirement, I draw decent retirement, you know. It's not great as a lot of people's, but, you know, it's decent. And plus, she's going to have a pretty good retirement when she... And if we get her, you know, what we want out of this place, well, we'll be able to build our house up there and, you know, get by, you know, comfortable, you know. That's all I care about, as long as I, you know, get by.
Well, what about leaving Alabama?
Well, I don't know. It's different. I mean, it's you know, truly different up there than it. Down here, you know, if you turn the radio on, all you're going to hear is how many killings we had in Birmingham last night. Up there, you know, you may hear, well, so-and-so run over an elk, or so-and-so hit a deer, or something like that. You don't hear about, you know, all this stuff that goes on. You know, it's just a different world up there than it is here. And it's so pretty. You know, you sit back and you see, you know, mountains for 20 miles, you know.
Yeah. Is it something spiritual that draws you there?
No, I don't know. It's just something that when we went up there, we had no plans. Well, the first time we went up there, and we just fell in love with it. We went to Maggie Valley area, you know. We just fell in love with it, and you know, there's a lot of history up there, especially moonshining history. There's a lot of moonshiners around that part of the country, you know. And all them TV stars, you meet them, they're just like sitting here talking to you, you know. They all friendly, talk to you, you know. Regular folks, you know, just making a good living, you know. And it's just a different, like I said, just a different, completely different atmosphere up there than it is here. And Cammie was, I mean, she loved it, and she was against it for a long time. I told her I wanted to sell out, you know, because I'm getting at the age, you know, that I'm ready to take some downtime. Yeah. I've never really had any downtime since I got out of the Army. You know, I've had to work 7 days a week for 40 years there at the plant, you know. Then I've been here, and it's worse now than it was when I was working. I got something to do every day, you know. And you're doing weddings every weekend. It takes up, like Thursday's my clean-up day. I cut the grass, clean everything up. And then Friday, they start coming in. People start decorating, doing the rehearsal dinner. Then Saturday, the wedding's all day Saturday. And then Sundays, I got to clean up, get everything set back up, and it's my show day, you know, showing people, you know, for, you know, it's interested in the weddings, you know. And plus I have them through the week, you know, and it's constant, you know. And so I had 3 days that I generally had to work on my projects. And then since I had that other house back over there from this last renter, that, you know, I've spent so much time over there working on it, you know. I had to keep the grass cut and remodel the whole house and everything, and get it back on the market to sell it, you know, that I don't have time to do nothing.
Yeah. Let me stop for a second, because I don't have any answer.
Now, I may hurt some feelings on this religion stuff, but I mean, I don't mind.
Well, some people
I'm rolling, but I can stop it if you want. Go ahead, that's all right. Stop it from Obby to
What I got to say.
What do you think about God, religion, yourself as a religious person?
Well, I believe in God, and you know, like I say, we was raised in church, and I don't know. I'm not a very religious person, But the one thing you can say about it, I ain't never been a hypocrite about it. And you got so many hypocrites out there, I'm telling you, the world is full of them that goes to church. And, but, you know, you see them in the same beer joints I've been to, or same dog tracks, or same casinos, you'll see them. And I've even heard preachers say, Lord, I hope none of my members see me in here, you know. And to me, that ain't going to get you to heaven, you know. That's being a hypocrite about it. But, you know, I mean, I think I was raised in church all my life, and I think it helped me through my life, you know. Like I said, you know, I believe in God and all this, but for as, you know, living it, I don't, you know. And, I mean, when we was kids, you know, our church was right beside our parsonage. And I remember me and Jerry, many times, we would sneak out of the church, crawl through the window, and while Daddy was preaching, and go to the house. And he would just keep preaching and tell us that I'll be right back. And he'd go get over there, grab us by the shirt collar, and bring us back and set us down up on the altar, you know, in front of the whole church, you know. But it didn't bother us. I mean, next week we'd do the same thing, you know. But, I mean, we had to go to church religiously. I don't care, you know, every Sunday night, Saturday night, Wednesday night, if the church doors was open, we had to go, you know. And then, you know, the way Daddy did, after he preached the way he preached, you know, for so many years, it really, you know, left a sour, you know, feeling towards it, you know.
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
I would imagine, maybe especially given your ages, when that happened, that, you know, you had been just beaten over the head
Mm-hmm.
with the Bible and all
I
that
mean,
from your father. And I guess I don't feel like Grandma was, I mean, I know she wasn't very outgoing, as, you know, she wasn't the leading Sunday school or anything.
no, you know, she couldn't. She had, you know, 8 of us to take care of, and, you know, with all, you know, eight of us within what, a 10 years, 12 year span. I think Tootie was in the first grade when Tricia was a senior in high school, you know, and, but Mother, you couldn't find no better of a person. And that's like Daddy, you know, when he, you know, started doing what he did. You'd never hear her say a bad word towards him, you know. She always found an excuse for it, you know. But like I said, she never got over it, you know. But, you know, if you have something beat in you for the way Daddy did us, you know, coming up, and then him do the things that he did, you know. I mean, it ain't no excuse. I know that, you know. But I think it did have a lot of effect on me, you know.
I think your mom's example
But
through all that is something that resonates with all of us, that she was able to just go on, just persevere, act like everything's all right. I mean, she really, I think, instilled in all of us about her example, just, you know, what we can go through and withstand and still be a good person and still love each other. I don't see how she could love, you know, or even be in the room with them. I remember one time that he came, he and Lillian both came from Mom's house when Grandma was there. I just couldn't believe that Grandma would even be able to be in the same room, but she was gracious. I think she left pretty soon after that. I don't know, she just typified the way Christ, I think, you know, we talk about Jesus and the church and all that your dad did, and then she ends up being the example rather than him.
yeah,
It's not really a question.
yeah, well, yeah.
Is there anything else about that? I mean,
Oh, no, that's basically it, the way I feel, you know. It's, but like I say, that's no excuse, you know. It's just, you know, something that's too, and something that, you know, I've always had to work. I worked so many hours over the last, you know, 40 years, 45 years, you know, that I work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, many. I never was off on the weekends, you know, especially, you know, the weekends. I always had to work because I don't count my job. You know, when you're in maintenance, you have to work, you know, especially when the plant's down, and you got to be there when the plant's running, you know. And so, you know, I played a lot of, you know, part of my going to church and stuff, you know. I mean, I don't have nothing against it. I don't have nothing against nobody. And I'll help anybody that needs help and tries to help themselves, you know. I don't care who it is, you know. But I guess I'm about as good-hearted as anybody you've seen, you know. But some people don't think so. But